In this tutorial, you will be guided through the action-oriented approach. Here are some key aspects of the action-oriented approach that will be explained in this tutorial. First, it views language learners as social agents. Second, communication develops through the social agent's various competences. Third, social agents use their various competences to learn by completing tasks. Lastly, we will look at some of the implications of the action-oriented approach in terms of language teaching and learning. Let's start with the idea of language learners and users as social agents. Language is always a part of an action in a social context. Social actions are not just an exchange of language. You don't just speak to another person for the purpose of speaking. You always use language for a certain goal. For example, you read the news in order to learn about current affairs, or you write an article to argue or persuade a certain audience. We are always using language with a certain goal in mind. It is important that learners are aware of this goal and of what they need to do in order to achieve it. Think about the following questions through the previous example of writing to persuade. What do I know about it? What do I not know? What do I need to know to achieve this goal? So, in the action-oriented approach, learners learn through social action. This goal is made clear to the learners, and they learn language by achieving those goals. How then do social agents or learners achieve their social goals? In other words, how do they learn language? The action-oriented approach emphasizes the importance of learners' various competences. There are two main categories. First are the general competences. These are not specific to language, but can be used for many different purposes, including language. For example, a learner who has strong organizational skills and experience with other cultures can apply this to their new language learning. So learners always have something to start with when learning a new language. The second category is communicative language competences. These are specific to language, which include linguistic knowledge, such as vocabulary and grammar rules, sociolinguistic knowledge, such as knowing when to use certain dialects, and pragmatic knowledge, such as inferring that a speaker is being sarcastic versus genuine. Previous approaches to language teaching have often emphasized linguistic competence as the most important, but the action-oriented approach places all three communicative language competences at equal levels of importance and also links them to the other general competences. Now that we know who the social agents are and how their various competences are involved, we can now ask, what can students and teachers do to mobilize these concepts into real language learning? In the action-oriented approach, learning happens when students complete tasks. The action-oriented approach has a very specific definition for the word task. It is an activity that allows learners to recreate the social actions of everyday life. It is not just a simple decontextualized language exercise. For example, a task could be organizing a birthday party, which would require the appropriate language skills to do various activities, such as preparing food, gifts, and invitations. Learners will also engage in purposeful action through tasks. In most cases, there will be various smaller subtasks that lead to a final culminating task. This is to help students focus on developing and using certain competences so that they are readily equipped to complete the culminating task. By dividing it into subtasks, it is easier for students to be aware of the different steps involved and for them to make their own sets of specific, organized, and connected choices to complete each subtask and the culminating task. Lastly, tasks can be very simple to very complex, based on the needs and proficiency levels of your group of learners. There is no one-size-fits-all task. Although the same activity, such as organizing a birthday party, can be done at all levels of proficiency, the difference in the quality of language used throughout the task can make it easier or harder for your learners. When adapting any task to your classroom, it will be necessary for you to decide on appropriate quality of language that students will use and develop so that learning is effective for your specific group of learners. This leads us to the final section of this tutorial, which addresses the approach's direct implications for language teaching and learning. Through an action-oriented approach, language learning is real and meaningful. Language is not just an accumulation of knowledge, nor is communication a goal in and of itself. Instead, students are given opportunities to practice social exchanges and create meaningful texts that are relevant to everyday life. Some examples of texts include a brochure for tourists, a blog entry, or a fundraising project. Finally, the action-oriented approach fosters self-directed learning. When creating a text, like the ones mentioned previously, the exact outcome and the creative process are not clearly defined. This changes the teacher's role in the classroom to one that is a combination of a coach, resource person, advisor, organizer, and facilitator. The students then are given the responsibility to make judgments about the task and be aware of the steps they will need to take in order to create their text. This is the end of the action-oriented approach tutorial. To learn more about how you can incorporate these ideas into your own lesson plans, please continue on to the next tutorial on the action-oriented task template.